Hey guys, welcome back to another video. The Sydney Marathon is creeping up on us. It's this Sunday. It's currently Wednesday. Today I'm going to be giving you my best Sydney Marathon tips, and later on in the video we're going to have a special guest, Ed Goddard, who's a 2:12 marathoner, and he's going to give us some of his tips as well. So this should be a good one. Stick till the end and I hope you enjoy this video. Tip number one is to wear a hat because it's going to keep the sunlight out of your eyes and it's going to decrease your perceived heat level. It's going to just mentally kind of keep you cooler. Tip number two brings us back to physics in high school. We all know that black absorbs a lot of heat, so try and avoid black clothing because it's going to absorb all the wavelengths, heat your body up, and that's not good for marathon race day, especially because it might be a slightly hotter day in Sydney this Sunday, so avoid black clothing. Alright, as you can see, I'm half in sunlight and half in the shade right now, and this is relevant to my next tip, which is to run on the shaded side of the road. There's going to be a few roads on the course where half of it's shady, half of it's sunny, so whenever you can, and if it's a long stretch of straight road, try and stay in the shaded part because you're going to keep cool just that little bit more compared to your competitors that are going to be in the sunlight. Tip number four, should you pour water on yourself mid-race or not? That actually depends on you. So if you're prone to chafing, probably don't do it because a lot of the times when your clothing gets wet, that's when you can chafe a lot in like different areas. Therefore, even though it's tempting on a hot day to pour water on yourself, think twice, because if you don't have your anti-chafe on and whatever, you might end up having a really hard time in the second half of the race. And as a quick follow-up to the previous tip, if you pour water on your wrist, you're not going to get chafing from that, but it actually does decrease your rate of perceived heat. So try and pour water on your wrist as opposed to getting it on your clothing, because the clothes are going to get heavy when they get drenched as well. So that's another reason why I want to avoid pouring water over the head. Now we're going to talk about some specific course tips. So I know that 3Ks in, there's a 500 meter downhill, and that's like pretty early on in the race. You don't want to ruin your quads too early, so don't send it down the hill. Try and go a little bit quicker, but not like full send, because we want to conserve a bit of energy. Going downhill fast, a lot of you will know that will really work your quads very hard eccentrically, and it may bite your back in the second half of the race. The other thing I wanted to say is that I want to split the marathon into thirds. The first third is a net downhill, the second third is a net uphill, and the third is a net downhill again. So I'd say overall it is a slight net downhill, obviously nothing significant, but it's good to keep in mind that your second third is probably going to be the slowest third, and from about 15k to 18k there is a part where it's an uphill, flat, and then uphill again. That's like 3 kilometers of pretty much just, net uphill for sure. So don't expend all your energy there because you're not even halfway at that point even, because that's like 15 to 18k. So try and conserve energy there, don't send it up the hill. You can always make up for lost time uphill on the downhill, so focus on that. And going back to hilly running, I talked about this a lot on my City to Surf Tips video, link in the description, but make sure to increase your cadence when you're going up the hill and down the hill, because that will help you a lot, and I promise you that. On the flat, you can just maintain whatever cadence feels pretty normal, but uphill and downhill running, you want to pick up the cadence compared to what you normally run on the flat. Alright, so I forgot to talk about 2 more extra tips which are very important. So the first tip is to pace to the course markers. If you go purely off your GPS watch, you'll notice that you're gonna hit 5Ks before you hit the actual 5K mark, because of the fact that you can never run perfect tangents. Because if you're in the middle of a huge pack, you can't actually run the shortest course possible because you're in a big pack. So that's why you should always look out for those 5K, 10K, and 15K and so on markers and pace to the markers. And the other thing is the marathon is a really mental race, so you can only train so much for it. Like people typically do, maybe anywhere from 80 to 160K. Some people go an insane amount. Some people do less, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you can only train so much for it, and therefore, after a certain point, it's a mental game. And if you can stay calm for as long as possible, you're just going to shorten the duration of the race in your head. So, for example, if you can come through the halfway mark pretty chill and comfortable in your mind at least, then you turn the race into a 21K race because you just cruise through the halfway mark. And yeah, some people start stressing at 5Ks, some people only start stressing at 30Ks, but if you can stay as calm as possible for as long as possible, the race is going to be shorter and it's going to feel shorter as well, and you're going to race better. Alright people, that's all my tips for today. good luck, and I'm gonna pass on to Ed Goddard, who's gonna give you some top tips for the marathon. And he's a 2:12 marathoner, so maybe you can take a point or two from him.
Couple marathon tips. Well, I think first marathon tip is, I mean, you always get a bit nervous before the race, so make sure you take a bit of toilet paper to the start line just in case you got to go and the porta potties are out.
Very good tip.
Second tip, it's going to be warm on marathon Sunday. And so make sure you stay cool beforehand. I mean, you want to warm up and you want to do stretches, but you don't want to you don't want to get too hot before. And make sure you sort of, after you warm up, you sort of sit down, chill out a little bit. Like, don't just like, warm up heaps and then go straight in the race. Like, you want to make sure you sort of cool down, get your heart rate a bit under control pre-start. Other marathon tips. Nutrition, important. I mean, there will be some on course. So make sure you know where the nutrition is, but also, like, I would recommend taking gels because gels are good and they're fuel. Other marathon tips, I mean, there's some hills. I mean, I wouldn't force the uphills, but I'd make sure, like, when you do get a downhill, you sort of get a bit of free running in and sort of let the legs just be able to roll down the hills without having to try to put the effort in. But you can sort of even out a slow uphill K with a couple faster downhill Ks as well.
Cool. Yeah. And obviously you had a good race in Gold Coast Marathon. What is your next?
Did I? It was an okay race.
Wasn't it a PB?
It was a PB, but it wasn't.
Who's not happy with the PB?
I mean, you were pretty happy with the PB.
Anyway, what is your next race? Apart from Sydney 10, like this weekend.
World Road Champs in Latvia.
Ooh, what is this about?
The half marathon, and then we're racing Valencia half marathon in Spain.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. And you're going to Singapore layover?
I'm going to Singapore layover and spin some miles around Marina Bay.
That'll be sick.
Which would be cool.
It'll be super humid as well.
Bump into some Singaporean people.
I'm sure you will here in Singapore.
I'm sure I will.